Imagine you're a business owner relying on a dozen different software programs. Each one is expensive, overly complicated, and worst of all, none of them are connected. It can be incredibly stressful, right? Now, picture Odoo. CRM, accounting, inventory, manufacturing, marketing, HR, and more. Odoo brings all the tools your business needs into one simple platform, and all seamlessly connected. Everything works together, giving you the peace of mind that your business is running smoothly from every angle. Odoo's open-source applications are user-friendly and designed to scale with your business, saving you time and money. Say goodbye to juggling multiple platforms and hello to efficient integrated management. Stop wasting resources on complicated systems and make the switch to Odoo today. Visit odoo.com, ODOO.com, and discover how Odoo can simplify and streamline your business operations. Odoo, modern management made simple.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm good.
For the past week, my dad has not slept well at all, and he is usually on a very similar sleep schedule to mine. We go to bed at like 7, we wake up at like 3 or 4, and lately he's been waking up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and basically not being able to go back to sleep. And I asked him, is this because your girlfriend is out of town right now? And he insists that that's not what it is. However, I think that has some kind of contribution to it, because chances are come tomorrow, I'm going to ask him and he's going to tell me he's slept so much better. And I'm not talking about just something like this happening occasionally or for some given reason. There are reasons why we might experience it. I know for me, I've only experienced insomnia after my mom had passed away. And I thought that today we could talk a little bit about first responder insomnia, and the kind that is not just occasional restless nights, but basically the chronic state of being wired and alert and unable to fully shut down for a long extended period of time.
I think that's something a lot of first responders have, and whether it's from shift work, whether it's something going on in your home environment or at work, to where we have these active minds that are going because of that hypervigilance all the time, to be able to shut it down and find that balance of being able to rest.
It's interesting because it's all science. So the psychological concept is called hyperarousal of the sympathetic nervous system. And this occurs when the nervous system basically remains locked in survival mode. So stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, they have a tendency to stay super elevated. And that prevents the brain from being able to enter that deep restorative sleep cycle that we need. And instead of fully powering down, the system hovers in this light sleep or this alertness, and it never allows you to fully restore that emotional and that physical reserve.
And I think, like, for Ashley and I, like, we prioritize sleep. Like, it's very important to us. Like, we know the importance of sleep, be able to operate at the levels that we always want to. And it's hard if you're not able to achieve that good quality sleep that you want, finding avenues to be able to address it. Like, one rule I have, and I know this isn't really insomnia related, but it's just, there's all these little nuances that we can do throughout the day to help improve our sleep through the night. And like, I cut off all caffeine at 2 p.m. If I don't have any caffeine past 2 p.m., like, it's not going to impact my sleep. It's finding those ways of almost starting that this is, okay, I'm preparing for sleep. It's 2 p.m., but I'm going to be preparing for sleep a little bit later tonight by not setting myself up for failure.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what insomnia might look like, but it could be difficulty falling asleep despite how super tired you are, or suddenly waking up with your heart racing. That's happened to me. Intrusive thoughts, or, those calls are just replaying at night when you're trying to sleep. You can have shallow or non-restorative sleep, or even feeling drained all day, but then wired when it comes time to go to bed.
I hate that feeling so much. I'm exhausted all day, and then I go to lay down. I'm like, finally, I'm going to get to sleep, and then I just can't fall asleep. And that's where it's finding things that help shut off your brain, shut off those stressors, to be able to get into a routine of, okay, it's time to actually sleep now. And I think it's for each of us, we find those little tips and tricks that work for us to be able to shut down that wired mentality.
There are signs that your nervous system won't shut off. And I think the first, we've already touched on this, is that your body is exhausted, but your mind just stays alert. And that fatigue is present, but the brain just remains on watch all of the time. And
when you're living in that state, when you're trying to go to sleep, because we have active minds and there's so many different tools and tricks of, presencing has been one thing that Ashley and I've talked about before. It's been super helpful, especially for me, is being able to shut down your mind. And that's where I think the old kind of concept of counting sheep before you fall asleep, because it's almost a mindless activity of being able to just watch those sheep go over the fence, and you're not thinking about all the other stressors that you have in your life.
I know for a lot of people, they feel super tense as soon as the house gets quiet, and that stillness amplifies that internal threat scanning for them.
And when that happens, is you're living in that hypervigilant state to where you're always looking for something to go wrong, and it's that Murphy's Law is whatever can go wrong will go wrong all the time, and you're not ever to differentiate yourself from that fight or flight response and be able to shut it off.
Your schedule can have so much to do with this. Not only does shift work really screw things up. I know an officer who's working very similar to like a firefighter schedule right now, where the type of detail that he's on, like this weekend, for example, it's 72 hours straight. They're like sleeping in their cars, and like it's very... I couldn't do it. And I think it's important to understand that a lot of the times, having circumstances like that deprive you of sleep, if you finally get the opportunity to be able to sleep, but then you feel like you're unrested no matter how long you've slept, that could definitely be a sign that your nervous system is out of whack.
Yeah, perfect example for me is like I was on graveyard last year, and at my sleep, like I would be in bed sleeping for 6 to 8 hours every day, and I never felt fully rested. As one, because I'm not used to the graveyard shift, but also you're not sleeping as good during the day, and there's so many things to where you start building up this it's just non-restfulness associated to it, and it's finding out, okay, what is the problem here?
Yeah, and I have no problem kind of pointing out and then helping to investigate what the problem is for people. There have been many times where, I'll get a message from somebody that I know should be asleep. Like 3 hours ago, they should have fallen asleep. And I'll call them out and say, like, why are you messaging me when you should be sleeping right now? And I think that for a lot of people, they rely on things like substances or even screens to fall asleep. And sedation or stimulation becomes that off switch for them.
Yeah, and you never want to be reliant on something that where you can't completely fall naturally asleep. And I hear this like from one of my closest friends. It's like, yeah, I'm just scrolling social media until I fall asleep, and I think that ends up hurting long term, because your sleep's not going to be as good as what you could if you were able to naturally fall asleep.
Yeah, I'm scrolling on social media until I fall asleep is the reason why you're not falling asleep. Your brain is literally thinking that it's daylight out. It's seeing those fake lights that are coming from your phone or your television screen. And so you're literally kind of recalculating the chemistry inside of your body to be more awake and to be more alert, instead of being able to process things in a slow down and shut down way.
Yeah, and that's where, like, even reading before bed, people say, I'm going to read before bed. Well, you're activating your brain to train it to where, okay, it might help you fall asleep, but you're activating to where when you're reading, you can't fall asleep without reading.
We actually have studies, you can look them up online, that show like by association things can matter. And what I mean by that is there are studies that say don't teach your brain that being in bed means that it's time to be alert and to read and to take in new information. So even reading in bed is something that could deprive you of the sleep that you need.
Yeah, you want to have that seamless sleep. And I know for myself, I've had an active mind since I was a kid, and it's always been hard for me to fall asleep. Once I'm asleep, I'm good, but falling asleep has always been a struggle, and it's finding things that help alleviate that.
Yeah, and you can rewire and retrain your system to be able to reset things. And the first is to just understand that this is neurological. This isn't willpower failure. Your system learned to survive, and now it has to learn safety again. And creating a decompression ritual between work and home is so important because your brain needs a very clear signal that you're off duty.
And not setting yourself up to where right before you go to bed, and I know some people they go, well, if I do a hard workout right before I go to bed, it helps them sleep. And in some cases, it possibly could help, but typically, if you're doing strenuous activity right before bedtime, you're doing more harm than good when it comes to your actual sleep.
I think too, if you lower your arousal before bed, not just collapse into it, your regulation must be able to understand what's taking place before it happens, especially when you're in the beginning stages of resetting everything.
Yeah, and I think it's important to really reformat our way of thinking with sleep. Is pretty much if your batteries run out in a remote control that you're watching TV on, and if you're not replacing those batteries, if you're not recharging them, you're never going to be able to operate at its optimal level.
It's really interesting to use this, but I'm thinking about all the protein that I drink every single day or eat every single day, and how it's something that I know that I'm relying on for fuel, and I have trust in it. We need to be able to reframe our sleep and our rest as a form of trust and not vulnerability, because just like that protein, it's not weakness, it's actually restoration.
Yeah, being able to restore our depleted cells by sleeping, by being able to regenerate ourselves for the next day. You're going to run at more optimal levels every day, the better quality sleep you get.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.